Hello and welcome to the Scientology Money Project on YouTube. We're part of the extended SPTV network. I'm doing a special show today on how to complain about the Church of Scientology, the cult, we call it, to the IRS. There's going to be protests. I believe it's on the 17th of April. I don't have the flyer to hand. If you are in the comments and can post that link, please. We're going to stay off that. We're going to stay on the topic of the IRS today, please. So, any off-topic things. There's going to be a protest downtown Los Angeles outside the IRS. I believe it's the 17th. There's a practice for it the week before, and then there's another one. So if you could, if someone out there has the link to the protest, I just couldn't get the flyer. I want to promote that flyer. I think having the protest outside the IRS is very good for raising public awareness and emerging all SPTV creators, other creators. I'm going to give you an education because I've been doing this a long time. I want to give you very specifics about how to effectively do a written complaint online easily and simply. And I want to give you some background about Scientology and tax exemption because knowledge is power. And there's some very specific things you can do. And so it's important. So let's go to right away. There's some background you need to know. And but basically, let me show you the form that you're going to use and the form that you're going to use. So when you go to the IRS website, it's basically going to tell you, let's go to the actual form. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Now this is from the IRS website. We're looking at it right now. It basically is IRS complaint process. First of all, because the Church of Scientology is an exempt organization, that means it's exempt from paying taxes. There's the regular IRS that collects income taxes, and then there's the exempt organizations. That's a division of the United States Internal Revenue Service. IRS exempt organizations. And so what you're going to do, they tell you on their website, I'm going to put this in the show links. Basically, if a tax-exempt entity, such as the cult of Scientology, is violating public policy, you can file using a Form 13909. And this gives you the information on this link. You can email it. So you can fill out a form and email it, or you can mail it to Dallas, Texas. Now, when you file your complaint, the IRS will send you back an acknowledgement letter that it's received it, but you're not going to hear anything else. I filed some very specific things, and I have filed many of this Form 13909, and we're going to show you that. So let's stop sharing this and look at the actual complaint process. And there's some information you're going to need that I have on the Scientology Money Project. So let's look at the Form 13909. And I'll get that right here. Okay, form. This is when you click, this is called the Form 13909. This is downloadable from the IRS website. Again, I have the links on my blog. And let's make this a little bit larger because this is where you get specifics. It's not enough to tell the IRS that Scientology is a cult and it should lose its tax exemption. We need specifics, and there's some information we need. And so basically you get on. So the name of the referred organization. Now, you're going to complain about the Church of Scientology International. That's the mother church. And that's the group that received the tax exemption in 1993. Now, you can also complain about the Religious Technology Center. of which David Miscavige is the chairman of the board. You can complain about flag land base, and I have all those numbers. So number one field, name the organization, their address, their city. They're going to want what's called, the IRS wants what's called an employer identification number. I have done all that work for you on my blog. I have all the EIN numbers to make it easier. So, unstable David, I'll get to your question in a minute. But the nature of the violation, and you're going to check boxes. So, you could argue, if you have some evidence, income assets are being used to support illegal or terrorist activities. I think harassment, spying, stalking, intimidation, you're going to need information on specifics, as specific as you can get. And you also have, if you know of them failing to report employment, income, or excise tax liability properly, organization, now this is an important one, organization engaged in deceptive or improper fundraising practices. Just as an important note, if you're a member of Scientology, if you're still in the church under the radar, you can make this report anonymously. You'll be protected. So if you have been victimized, like if you're a victim of the Chase Wave credit card fraud, you can certainly report them on this. You can do others. If you have been for example, falsely arrested, harassed, stalked, you can list that. And then if you have the name of the persons involved, for example, the name of Scientology Reg is involved in the Chase Wave credit card fraud or other types of fraud. If the International Association of Scientologists defrauded you, cheated you, lied to you, basically, and then you give the title, dates, description of activities, submitter information. The more information you have, the better, because this is what the IRS will investigate. So you have to give them information. Now, as submitter, you can put your name, occupation, and at the bottom, you can see under 5, I am concerned that I might face retaliation or retribution if my identity is disclosed. So you want to check that box if you have concerns. I don't check it, but, I'm not, I've had my go-arounds with the Office of Special Affairs. Marina, yes, please add this. I have the link on my blog, Scientology Money Project, and all the information is there. Please, any help, all of us need to work together to get this done. And so I appreciate anyone linking it. Adam, can confidential levels be listed as... No, I know what you're saying, but this is like, no, you can't list it as a fraud. And let me make something very clear. I'm going to make some differentiations in this video. It's important. The last thing you want to do is make yourself look foolish in front of the IRS. So you have to keep this serious so that they'll take it seriously. And the complaint has to be about specific actions. It's not about beliefs. It doesn't matter what the Church of Scientology believes. It matters is conduct. That's why Danny Masterson was convicted. Yes, Marina, you can email me, please. Let's get in touch. Jeffrey Augustine, JEFFREY, AUGUSTINE, @gmail.com. Let's coordinate on this. I'll give you as much help as I can. And should separate forms be submitted for different Scientology corporations? Yes, and we're getting ahead of things. So I'm going to so back to this. This is the form. So you have anonymity if you're concerned about retribution. So that what you can do is you can mail it, and it shows you the street address there. You can mail it here to Dallas, Texas. You can fax it, or you can email it to class. That's exempt organizations class at irs.gov. And so then what you do, it's going to give you information on how to fill it out. Getting at what we can do right now, the action we can specifically take right now are two things. Make known the Form 13909. It goes to the IRS tax-exempt organization complaint referral. Now, the second thing that I've done that's very important is on my blog. Let me share the screen here. I'm going to stop that screen. I'm going to give you the EIN numbers. This is the other information that's very critical that you're going to want to have, that you need, in fact. Okay. How to easily file. Okay, this is it. Okay, so from my blog, hold on. It looks like I was jumping around. I had my channel on. Okay, so today I put up a blog post, how to easily file a formal online complaint. And this is quoting from the IRS website. They actually say, go ahead and complain. Your government, if you're an American citizen, and you don't have to be an American citizen to complain. So they say, the IRS says, go ahead and complain. The IRS is all ears, particularly about complaints alleging any abuse of the tax-exempt status to a nonprofit organization. And so it's called a referral. And on my blog, I have the email address, eoclass@irs.gov, and you can download the Form 13909 from my blog, so you don't even have to go to the IRS site. And what I give, and I told you earlier that you would need the EIN number, employer identification number that we can see here. Now, I've provided all the EIN numbers. So you can complain about the Church of Scientology International. They would be the ones, OSA, the Office of Special Affairs, is a department within the Church of Scientology International. So if you have a complaint about Office of Special Affairs, you'll file a complaint about Church of Scientology International and its department called the Office of Special Affairs. They're the ones that hire the PIs, the lawyers. OSA does intelligence, legal, fair game, harassment, spying, stalking. So that's what you would get. You have the EINs there. If you have a complaint about Flag Land Base in Clearwater, Florida, there's their EIN. This is going to be, these EINs are the key numbers, and that lets the IRS, when they do an investigation, they can just pull that number in their system, look for prior complaints. If you were on the flagship, the Free Winds, there. The USIS Members Trust, if you were defrauded by the IAS, if you're trying to get a refund and the church will not give you back monies on deposit, you can make a complaint about they will not give you a refund, and they told the IRS that they would give you a refund, and we're going to get into that. So if you have monies on account and they're not giving you your monies on account, let's say you have $60,000 on account and they won't give it back to you, and they say we're under no obligation to refund you, well, then I would immediately file this and say, I've made several communications. The important thing is to do not give up your attempt to get your money back, because if you legally abandon it, you have problems. And I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I've been told. So if the IS has ripped you off, you complain, you form a 13909. If the Church of Scientology Religious Trust, they're another fundraiser. They're raising money, I believe, for the L. Ron Hubbard Hall. If the Religious Technology Center, David Miscavige, there's their EIN number and their address. So all you do, you can file a complaint about all of the organizations. And this discussion, this is some homework. Basically, there's something called the doctrine of illegality. But I cite a paper you can read because this is worth reading. Illegality and Public Policy Considerations. It's a document for the IRS website. And it basically says, quote, and public policy means the law, United States law. So it says, all organizations seeking exemption under 501c3 must conform to certain fundamental legal principles applicable to all charitable organizations. And it goes down to say, one of these basic charitable principles is that charitable organizations may not engage in behavior that is illegal or violates public policy. This is crucial to realize. You cannot break the law and get tax exemption. That's the illegality doctrine. You can cite the illegality doctrine that the church has broken the law by stalking, harassing, intimidating me. My tires were slashed, I believe, by agents of Scientology on this date, at this time, and in this place. The more specifics, the better. So this is just to give you some background. Now, I have listed the earlier Church of Scientology was called the Church of Scientology of California. That's the old defunct. And in a court case, this is really interesting. This goes back to why Church of Scientology had to reorganize. If an organization has an illegal purpose, which I believe the Church of Scientology International does, and the earlier Church of Scientology of California does, in this early case, the old Church of Scientology of California, which is a previous corporation that was disincorporated by the church, the court found that one of the organization's purposes was criminal tax fraud. And that's why one of the reasons they lost their tax exemption. So what you want to communicate to the IRS is that the Church of Scientology International is engaged in criminal activity, and that's in violation of public policy. They're breaking the law, and give as much specifics as you can. That includes photographs. You can mail in a package with photographs, with things from the internet. If they have posted things, say, for example, Leah Remini's lawsuit, they're engaging in defamation and slander. You can take examples. It doesn't have to be related to you. You can take examples of them slandering Leah Remini, slandering other people, telling lies and saying they engage in slander and libel and they break the law. So here's the bottom line. An organization will not qualify for tax-exempt status if it engages in substantial illegal activity. You want to note how much surveillance they have. Note things that happen at La Poubelle. Note that they've been engaged in getting people swatted through LAPD. Now, in my opinion, it is very important if you've been swatted by LAPD to document that. False arrest. So that's something, Defender of Ants, Aaron Smith-Levin, other people could fill out one of these and say, I was falsely arrested based on a phone call, I believe from a Scientology agent, but you can pull the LAPD into this. And by the way, I have a source I've developed inside of LAPD who is saying that LAPD is angry with Scientology, calling them chronically and habitually. So if you've had, you should complain about Scientology and the relationship they have with LAPD Hollywood, that you believe it's illegal, you believe it's in violation of the law, you believe there may be collusion. You can make these allegations. And I think as part of an investigation into Scientology's tax exemption, its relationship with LAPD Hollywood should be investigated. That's something the federal government can come in and look at, especially if you've been a victim of it. So let's go back. And again, you can fill this out online. So I have more examples of conduct that you can cite. Paying attorneys to engage in systematic acts of spying, harassment, intimidation. So I've listed things that PIs paying for phone records, things like that, harassing content creators. So these are some of the violations of public policy, and I've listed out a lot. For example, when they create their hate websites, they were doing a lot of videos, and they still do. And so what you want to do on Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter, anything that's defamatory, false, malicious, print it out, document it, and mail it in along with your Form 13 and 909. The more evidence, the better. The more people who mail it in, the better. This is a thing where if we could get 200,000 people to mail in complaints, the IRS will notice. Protests are terrific for raising awareness. They can make media, but actual evidence of Scientology, what it's doing online, what it's doing in its videos, you need to give to the IRS exempt organization, paying for Google ad campaigns. They were promoting Scientology's malicious hate websites. So begin to collect evidence. You are an online investigator. You're not a private investigator, but any citizen is entitled to do online open source intelligence investigation of things that are publicly there. So take all your evidence. And like when the Squirrel Busters, I complained about them. That was a violation. Okay, now the other thing you can document if you're in the church or have knowledge of it, deceptive and misleading fundraising activities. You know, for example, the IRS, do they pay for the lawyers and the spies and the PIs to harass? So they don't make their 990s public. Now, that's CCHR is the only one I've seen doing it. So this is why I'm reaching out. There's plenty of people out there who know more than I do. And we need experts, lawyers, anything you have that stands out to you, especially if you've been in the church and you have money on account, you can complain about that. And I give this, so you have very specific instructions, how to fax, email, or send. I have to update this. I don't think Bob Malone's the director any longer, so I'll update that. And then you can download the Form 13909. So I have it all there for you. And you know, this is like a lead up. Education is power. The blog post is worth working. A couple other things I want to recommend to you. Let's take a question real quick from Christina Lembo. Hi, Christina. When Aaron was going around documenting empty buildings during business hours, is that anything? I'm not able to make that determination because Scientology defines, you know, is free to define its the hours when it's open for business. However, any evidence that you have, you can submit, and you would have to come up with a reason why the empty buildings signify anything. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in a position to answer that. I don't think it is, but that's worth bringing up. It's good to ask questions. And believe me, like I said, I'm not an attorney, but that's a good thing to point out, that they appear to be purchasing real estate to no end. So one thing you can't do as a 501c3 is engage in excessive capital accumulation. You can't just hoard cash. That's why Scientology buys real estate, because it's a way to show that they're not engaging in excess cash accumulation. However, to your point, Christina, it might be worth developing to raise the question with the IRS. You could just say, in order to avoid being accused of excessive cash accumulation, they buy real estate to no end because these buildings are empty. And this has been documented. So that's worth making a complaint about, is the accumulation of real estate for its own sake, just another form of excess cash accumulation, converting it into buildings. So I think you have something worth sending them evidence about. Talman Sunnies have illegal tents. Yes, they do. Timmy Tallman's breaking the law. Is this something only U.S. citizens can do, please? No, you do not have to be a U.S. citizen to complain. And so if you have something that's going on in the UK or France or anywhere else, you can complain about their activities overseas because they're tax exempt in the U.S. So I would complain, and you do not have to be a U.S. citizen. The Anthony R. Miller Show. Hello, Anthony. I just got on here. Very interesting. I think you have the right strategy. If one wants to accomplish something through the government, you have to go to the right office. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, be very specific. This is the way to do it. I'm giving you the roadmap on how to do it. David Miscavige on video referring to his additions to his war chest. Doesn't sound, William, that's an astute point. I would send that into to the IRS with the footage and the links to the footage. Generally, the U.S. government agencies will not open unsolicited links or memory sticks. So you would say you could do when he made the video and what he said. A war chest sounds like he wants to go to war. And so I'm a never in. How can I help? Denise asks. Well, it's simple. You go onto X or Twitter, you go onto social media, and you find places where they engage in malicious conduct in violation of public policy. You look for their lies. So you go basically through their websites and you find where they make false statements, where they lie, where they've slandered people, where you think they've done something that's against the law, or even against, something a tax-exempt organization should not do. And, for example, having children, I think a very strong case has been presented by Serge Delmar, and I'm hoping all of the second and third gens who worked as auditors, if you were a minor and you were an auditor or held any other position in the Church of Scientology in which you were exposed to graphic sexual content while you were a minor, please report that, because that is a crime. You cannot expose a minor, even under a religious guise. If, for example, you were a 14-year-old female and some 40-year-old man was telling you about something graphic sexually, that's criminal in my opinion, and I would report that. I worked as an auditor at Flagland Base, and a man named, and give the name of the person, a man named Bob Jones told me graphic sexual details, and it caused PTSD. I'm being treated for PTSD as a result of being exposed to graphic sexual content as a minor under the color of me being a minister or an auditor. That's something I would do. I would definitely do. And I think that Serge saying that kids in hotels being traumatized that way, I would report everyone who'd ever been exposed to it. If you were at the Oaks Ranch or the Delphi School and you were exposed to graphic sexual content as a minor by Scientology, even in an A to J check, if you had to talk about, if you were a minor and you were forced to disclose what you did sexually, if you masturbated, I would tell the IRS about that on the Form 13909, because sex and minors, that's something the FBI told me they want to know about, anything involving sex. And I think it's disgusting. If you went into a SEORG as a minor and you had to give a life history that included every sexual detail, make an affidavit, write it out, because you're not confined in the Form 13909. It says you can attach everything else. So you fill out the basic form and you put C attached. You write what happened to you. I have Form A to J on my blog, The Scientology Money Project. You can search it and say, I was forced to give a detailed confession of all the sexual things I did as a minor, and I found it to be very traumatizing. And I believe it's a criminal violation to force a minor to disclose sexual details, because a minor is not capable of consenting. So I think the SEORG, if you were in the SEORG as a child, a young teenager or preteen, and you had to talk about the times you masturbated or you were involved in a sexual situation, report that to the IRS. Please report that, because I think that's one of the strongest arguments we have going. Serge was trafficked from a different country and had his passport locked up. That's the type of stuff that would catch the Fed's attention. Exactly. Serge certainly could say, my parents brought me into the United States without my consent. I was pressured into joining the Sea Org. And I think that Serge very much illustrates, and I appreciate him speaking out about the hell he's been through. And Warrior Queen, I could be mistaken, but wasn't Scientology required to provide regular religious services in order to obtain tax-exempt status? Yes. If that isn't happening at all and all these buildings are empty, maybe something. Well, you could technically, it's not your strongest argument. And they said that they gave Sunday services. So I'm going to get into something to give you some history. So I'm going to give you some history, a couple of things to look at. And I'm going to post these links. One of the real important things is an article that Doug Franz did, and I don't agree completely with it, but I'm going to show you something that I think you should look at. It's worth reading, and again, I'll put it in the show links on YouTube. In 1996, this is a very important article, and educate yourself before the protest. Now, this is an article by Douglas France. It's actually 1997. This is one of the definitive pieces that you should educate yourself on. New York Times, March 9, 1997. Douglas France. Scientology's puzzling journey from tax rebel to tax exempt. And this is really a definitive piece. So Mr. France did an investigation, and he says the full story of the turnabout by the IRS has remained hidden behind taxpayer privacy laws. But an examination by the New York Times found that the exemption followed a series of unusual IRS actions that came after an extraordinary campaign orchestrated by Scientology against the agency and people who worked there. Among the findings of the review by the Times, based on more than 30 interviews and thousands of pages of public and internal church records, were these. Okay, so Scientology's lawyers hired PIs to dig into the private lives of IRS officials and to conduct surveillance operations to uncover potential vulnerabilities. And this article is mind-blowing. This is all the dirt. And again, you can reference Mr. Franz's article saying, why, IRS, did you grant tax exemption? Now, also, I would name Fred Goldberg. This is where I would like to get together a foundation, collect money, and sue the IRS, and get Fred Goldberg. And I think if there is a dirty actor at the center of it, it's Fred T. Goldberg Jr., Commissioner of IRS at the time. So this article is worth studying. I'm not going to go through the whole article here, but this is a blockbuster article. And so that's where many people don't know about the article. I want to bring it to public attention because Douglas Franz's article is as important now, perhaps even more important than it was in 1997. And basically what happened Scientology applied. So the old Church of Scientology of California went away. The new organization was Church of Spiritual Technology, Religious Technology Center, Church of Scientology Incorporated, CSI. And they reapplied for tax exemption after losing it in 1967. Oh, Linda, thank you. Linda Lou, who? I think we should probably have been directing energies at this all along. Yes. Can you imagine if everyone who watches all of SPTV fill out one of these? That's exactly it, Linda Lou, who. Everyone fill out one. Could you imagine 200,000, 250,000 of these? You are an OG. I appreciate this. Thank you. I am an OG. And I have been working on this for, my blog's 10 years old. And what I want to bring it down, I'm showing you, like, again, a roadmap. So Douglas Francis' article was a blockbuster. I'm going to show you something else that's a blockbuster. In 1997, so Scientology got their tax exemption by 1993. And there's some things they did that, again, I'm going to do a show about it. I'm trying to get an expert to go on. But I'm going to show you something that I was in the... So before the church got tax exemption, they had to file what's called a 1023. And they had to go through and answer some questions. And there's some documents I want to publish that the public really doesn't know about. And they're hard to find, but I do have them. And this is one of them. So before the Church of Scientology got its tax exemption, it had to file what's called a 1023, and it gave a lot of information to the IRS. For example, this is part of the 1023 submittal. Before you got tax exemption, you have to file a 1023. And the IRS asked them a bunch of questions. And the church answered them. Now, this is conversation going on between the church, and there's like 6 feet of documents, according to Monique Yingling in the IRS evidence room in Washington, D.C. I have several hundred pages of it. I was in talking to the IRS some years ago, and see that black stripe on the bottom? That black stripe on the bottom of this. I was talking to a senior IRS official, and she said, "Where did you get that document? That's ours." Excuse me. She was really mad because that black stripe showed that it was an internal document. And she wanted to know where I got it. And I said it was leaked by the New York Times. That's where I got it. So I'm going to publish this. I have it on my blog, but I'm going to do a new series of publications between now and the protest, because I want you to have all the documents and to disseminate these online through your channels. And this is full of lies. I have gone through their documents, and I can show lies that they lied to the IRS. And this is important, and I will tell you why. When the IRS settled with the Church of Scientology, there was what was called the final closing agreement. And what happened, a draft of that final closing agreement was leaked by the New York Times in 1997, and I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show you why this is a particular approach, and any lawyers out there who want to help, contact me. And this is the final closing agreement. This document, a lot of people don't know about it. In fact, most people don't know about it. This is an agreement between the Church of Scientology and the Internal Revenue Service. It says that they have and this was signed in 93. They have a 30-year history of controversy. So what happens? They fill out their 1023, etc. This goes through their agreement, okay? And it does mention the 1991 meeting between David Miscavige and Mark Rathbun. And this is a recitation. And this is the agreement for what's happening, resolution of outstanding issues. This is worth going through. It's a long document, but if you're interested in details, because I am one of, I don't like the too long didn't read, like tuning things out. I like to actually get involved. Not everyone does, but this is the actual document. It was leaked. This is the final draft. I have been told by people in the know that it's the same as the actual copy that was signed, that the final draft doesn't differ from the actual one. And this goes through the long history of what's going on. Basically, Scientology was given a 5-year probationary period. So when Scientology got tax exemption, they had to agree to set up the CTCC, which was the Church Tax Compliance Committee, for 5 years. So Scientology got 5 years of probation. And that tells you that the IRS was thinking, well, we'll give you tax exemption. Hopefully we'll give you enough rope to hang yourselves. So this agreement called for a 5-year probationary period where they had to be monitored. And that gave rise to all the stupid stuff out there that Meet Emery and was taking it over. And they wanted the OT levels. I did an episode on that ridiculous stuff. This is the very detailed thing, and this will give you a lot of information. But let's go to the bottom. Now, on page 64, finality. This is what I'm asking for help from lawyers who really want to go to court on this. Finality. This agreement is final and conclusive except, 1, the matter it relates may be reopened in the event of fraud, malfeasance, or misrepresentation of material facts. I believe that there has been fraud, malfeasance, and misrepresentation of material fact within the agreement. And because this agreement's 1993, it doesn't state that there's any statute of limitations on how it may be reopened in the event of fraud, malfeasance, or misrepresentation. In fact, the Chase Wave credit card fraud, of which there's abundant evidence, is fraud on it's fraud. That should be enough for the IRS Exempt Organization Division and the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit to reopen the question of tax exemption. This question of finality, I asked an expert. I've asked several experts working behind the scenes, because a lot of what I do is behind the scenes and I don't talk about. But this, I believe, if we could get some funding and some lawyers, meaning people who opposed the Church of Scientology having tax exemption, this is the way in. This is almost like, I think, one of the best ways in, calling it to be reopened because there's been fraud and misrepresentation of material fact. Case in point, one example of the misrepresentation of material facts is that the Church of Scientology said it was easy for people to get their money back, that it was easy. The church told the IRS that there's a small portion of people, there's just a small number of people who are not happy with the church and the church doesn't want them around, so they'll easily give them their money back if they put monies on account. So all the refused return of advance payments is a violation. Yes, CC. Basically, Scientology lied and they said that it's easy to get your money back. If you put money on advance payment, you can get it back. Now the church changed its tune and said, we're under no obligation to give you any money back. And the IRS even said, when you donate, I understand that this money can't be refunded. So if you go through, and I have extensive stuff, if you're a law firm and you're interested in contacting me as an expert, and there's other people we can get, there's other experts um, to reopen, then there's plenty of lies they told in the closing agreement. And to go back, like I said, this document, if we go back up to page 1, this has so many specifics. This has so much stuff where you could show that there was fraud. And in the 1023 evidence they submitted. So this was sort of like a guideline into what they're going to do, how they're going to act. But the 1023, what they told the IRS to get tax exemption, what they actually did, and it goes, resolution of outstanding issues. So there's plenty of material. So basically, David Miscavige said that they owed the IRS $1 billion. They didn't owe that much money. That was a bullshit story by Miscavige. The amount was not $1 billion. But outrageously, the church settled with the IRS for $12,500,000. That's an outrage. That's only like, that is just such an outrage. So this goes through the actual code and what they did. And so there's a long history of these organizations. Of Scientology. After it lost its tax exemption in 1967, it continued to behave like it was tax exempt. And there were lawsuits. There's a lawsuit called Hernandez versus the Commissioner, whereby the government had played Scientology to a dead end and didn't have to give them tax exemption. So there's some things that are going back. Is the agreement enforceable after the 5-year window? Form 13909S. No, it's an agreement. There's no statute. There's no statute on. If you go to page 64, it says that the matter may be reopened, and that's worth going to court, filing a lawsuit, and asking about. Because if you go back, there's no statute. It just says that it may be reopened in the event of fraud, malfeasance, or misrepresentation. I think you can make a strong case that David Miscavige has engaged in malfeasance. We know, we have the testimony of former members that Miscavige, for example, kept a stack of undated resignations and still has those. We know that there was supposed to be a system of checks and balances. They told the IRS that now that L. Ron Hubbard was dead and the dictator Hubbard was dead, that there was CST ran at the top. The special directors had to be tax lawyers. They didn't have to be Scientologists, and those are the Lensk brothers, Sherman and Stephen Lensk. And it was also Larry Heller and Monique Yingling. Larry Heller left, and Monique Yingling is now one of them. They said that we have a system of checks and balances, but Miscavige has collapsed all the checks and balances. That is another reason to file a 13909, that David Miscavige has collapsed all the checks and balances, and he is effectively the alter ego of the Church of Scientology. The term alter ego means that the Church of Scientology and David Miscavige is anonymous, that Miscavige has pierced all the corporate veils. The strongest argument for Miscavige piercing the veils and an alter ego finding being determined in a court of law, and this is why I believe that Marty Rathbun, that the church went after him for blood, is in the Rathbun case where Monique Rathbun was suing the Church of Scientology, David Miscavige, and a lot of other people down there in Como County, Texas. Courtroom was in New Braunfels. I was watching it, 2014. I went down there court watching. I believe that Attorney Ray Jeffrey, got so close to piercing the corporate veils and showing that the Church of Scientology was the alter ego of David Miscavige that they had to crush Marty by whatever means possible. That's why I think Marty flipped, because Marty was in a position to pierce the corporate veils. That's what I think happened with Marty. Because I was, around at the time, and Marty certainly was involved in tax organization, I'm sorry, a tax exemption. Marty was very involved. He would go uh, almost every other week or weekly from LA to Washington, D.C. with David Miscavige. Marty told me that he and Dave would run a nice hotel suite that they each had their own room, and they would work within Scientology. They had to do a lot of things like separate out L. Ron Hubbard's for-profit fiction books from the nonprofit Scientology books. So there was a lot of work that went on, and Monique Yingling was involved. Her husband, Jerry Pfeffer, I believe her late husband, Jerry Pfeffer, was very much involved. Excuse me. So there's a history of it. Does Scientology file as a corporation? No, Mima Flowers, they don't have to file anything. They can fill out a 990 if they have unrelated business income, but 501c3s do not have to file tax returns if they have unrelated business income. And that's how I originally found it. They were generating unrelated business income from the golf course. So they've quit filing unrelated business income, so they don't have to file anything. And that's one of the outrageous things. Question. So the man featured extensively in the Aftermath episode who couldn't get his money back in court could go back to the IRS. Well, that was Luis Garcia. He filed a lawsuit and he was forced into Aftermath. He could certainly go back. Sure. I can't speak for Luis. Haven't spoke to him in a long time. But Sherman Lensk, if you're listening, tell the truth while you still have time. Yeah, and Norton Carno, you could step up too. I doubt that they will. The tax law firm who takes this will be famous, seen as heroes. Yeah, I think this would be a good case to take. This would be a good case to take, and that's what I've been trying to do for a long time. But now that we have SPTV and it's exponentiated, look, Leah Remini's show, The Aftermath, was incredible. I know from my sources inside the IRS that it brought a lot of heat in the IRS. It got talked about. I know that the commissioner of the IRS actually took cognizance of the show, as did many other people in the senior bureaucracy of the show. I know that for a fact. I know that Leah Remini's show, Scientology and the Aftermath, what she and Mike Rinder did on her show, got noticed, and it even got noticed by Trump's people. And I'm not getting political here. I'm just saying the show got noticed, and it got noticed within the IRS. I know that for goddamn sure, because I have sources. Monique is a big law partner. Would it be worth writing to the firm's other big clients? That's completely up to you. Monique, I think 72, and I'm not a lawyer. Don't know. That's something you'd have to take on. I would get the advice of a lawyer before I did that. I can't answer that question. Michael Andreas, person A could defraud person B for $1 million. If person A pays the income taxes on $1 million, the IRS doesn't care. No, I don't agree. Fraud is a criminal act. Fraud's a criminal act. So first of all, the premise, if person A defrauded person B for $1 million, that's a criminal act. Even if person A had paid the income taxes, it's not an IRS matter, it's a criminal matter. So, and that's why, for example, Doug Doring, the late Doug Doring, his company ABC Mouse, Age of Learning, was fined $10 million for defrauding people because their credit cards went in and couldn't go back out. But I know what I think I know what you're trying to say, Michael. Let me put it this way. It's not illegal to be stupid in the United States. So if someone if someone overpaid, $1 million for something and it wasn't technically fraud, you're correct. But if it was actually a criminal act, then it's different. So let's split the difference on that question. if someone stupidly invested in David Gentile's GPP Capital Holdings, Scientologist David Gentile's GPP Capital Holdings, yeah, that's not illegal. They lost their money. They're screwed. We have to remember how Al Capone was taken down. Yes, he was taken down by the IRS. And see, this is one thing I want to get across. The IRS is not afraid of Scientology. They're not. And the fact that Scientology had PIs, this is where I don't agree with Douglas France, respectfully, Mr. France. Don't agree with you. Love to have you on a show. I've got some information you may not have had at the time. But the fact that they harassed IRS, beginning in the 1980s, Scientology created CATS, Citizen for an Alternative Tax System, and they harassed, and they were very anti-tax. And they spied on IRS agents and harassed them and exposed. For example, IRS agents had a meeting, like a convention, and they were drinking on the public. They were using public tax dollars to drink. That's not a big deal. And the reason I say that is that the IRS, along with the FBI, and the Department of Justice, RICO law, brought down organized crime in the 1980s. They broke the 5 mafia families. So the IRS is not afraid to take on Scientology. And I wish Tony Ortega would stop saying that. I respect Tony as a journalist, but I don't agree with him on that. The IRS is not afraid of Scientology. The IRS Criminal Investigation Division has gone after drug cartels. They've used federal forfeiture laws to destroy drug cartels, Russian oligarchs, and other organized crime. And they're very aggressive. So that's just something I respectfully disagree with Tony on. The 2,300 lawsuits or whatever it was, a court would have rolled those into one lawsuit and made it a class action matter. No, there was something deeper. And the fact was that, this is where I think Fred Goldberg or Jerry Pfeffer said, there's a little known $120 million lawsuit where Scientology filed against senior IRS officials just before the 1023 began. And that knocked out people in LA. Scientology knocked out senior IRS officials in LA who opposed the church. And so that gave Fred Goldberg a pretext to pull these people out. And then, as Doug France notes correctly, the IRS agents inspecting Scientology's application for tax exemption were limited. That's why Doug France's article is so important. The commissioner of the IRS severely restricted what the examiners could look into. And the lawsuit knocked out the senior IRS officials from being involved. They had to recuse themselves. So there was a strategy. It's been said that, and I've shared this before, the late Scientologist technical official at Flagland Base, I don't recall his name right now. He was senior CS int, and he was the roommate of Bill Clinton in college. And apparently there was a $5 million donation made to the Clinton Presidential Library Fund. So there's some stuff that went on. There's some fuckery, to be sure, but the IRS wasn't intimidated. I think it was inside the Beltway dirt, looking the other way. But certainly Doug France knows that by restricting the scope of the examination, you'd be driven to that conclusion. It'd almost be like, don't look at the 90% of the stuff here. Don't look at IRS versus Hernandez. Just only look at this. So by rigging the system, I think the malfeasance and the fraud, part of it's on the part of the IRS. Whoever in the IRS, whether it was Goldberg, somebody rigged the system to force a conclusion that they would get tax exemption. Because there's things they didn't look at. So there could be fraud on the part of the IRS itself internally. There could have been corruption inside. Yes, thank you. It was Richard Reese. Thank you. Yeah, Richard Reese, the late Richard Reese, who was senior tech terminal at Flag, was Bill Clinton's roommate in college. So Davey Mismanage on stream talked about how government momentum takes a lot of effort to steer, but that momentum is unstoppable once it's moving in the right direction. This is our chance to steer. I agree. I think if everyone got on board, it's like an ocean liner, the analogy of an ocean liner. So let me see if I have, I did want to show you something else. R.M. Siebert, who is certainly done a lot of work. Siebert, okay. So R.M. Siebert, who's a Muck Rock investigator, absolutely outstanding work. Tried to get information related to Scientology through a FOIA request, and has gotten a lot of information. This was on files regarding the unauthorized disclosures of confidential tax information. So there's been a lot of investigators, myself included, working to get information either through FOIA, public records, or sources, people who are willing to talk. So if you want to contact me and you're willing to talk confidentially off the record, I'm all up for it. So let's reiterate. And this is just, oh, by the way, the Church of Scientology has its own storytelling on its website. I'm not going to share it, but they tell they're a very slanted version of how they got that tax exemption. And there is that picture that Leah Remini showed on her show of Miscavige and Marty with IRS officials happily dancing. Those guys should be subpoenaed if we could get this thing reopened. So to reiterate, we'll go to the back here. Hold on a minute. I'm just going to reiterate and then we're going to close. So, okay, I have it back up. So let me share that. So just to reiterate quickly, I have the information up on my site, how to easily file a formal complaint. This is what I want to see. IRS special agents, along with the FBI, executing search warrants and, raiding Scientology. So you go to the IRS, you can go to my website, you download Form 13909. Please get that downloaded. Please get it shared on social media. And this link to my site, if you need to repackage it on your YouTube channel, on your blog, please feel free to cut, paste, and copy. This is open source. Basically, get Form 13909. I have all the EIN numbers you need. So you can cut and paste this. This is a very long piece. It's a good piece, but you can distill it down for your purposes on X, on Instagram, anywhere you need to go with it. Take the information. I made it publicly available. No charge. You can credit Scientology Money Project. You don't have to. I appreciate it. But the important thing is to get it done. And basically, I emphasize, if an organization has an illegal purpose, it will not qualify for exemption. Well, making minors listen to graphic sexual content is an illegal purpose. Cheating people out of their inheritances, college trust funds, retirement income, everything. So, Form 13909, downloaded. It can be emailed here. So it's as easy as emailing it and downloading the form. And then I have the EIN numbers. So we try to make it as simple as possible. Oh, Angie, thank you for coming on. IRS protest. When? April 9 is practice. And this is downtown Los Angeles. Angie, if you could please just send me over the information. I'll post the flyer. I just couldn't get it in time for this. So it's April 9, 2024 is the practice. April 17, 2024 is the official protest. And April 24, 2024 is the final attempt. Now, these are the kinds of forms, if you can print out, Angie, 13909s, raise public awareness, actually print out a stack. Take with you. So on a one page, you could just have how to download it, or you give out the form itself, where to email it, and the types of things about which you should complain. Look, if you say that you're outraged, even if you write to the IRS and say, I'm outraged about Scientology having tax exemption, you could do that as really well. You are doing God's work. Thank you. That's a very kind thing to do. I'm actually doing I'm doing the work of an American citizen who's outraged that this vicious human trafficking cult that engages in financial criminality has tax exemption. What I want is what everyone else wants, is for the IRS to actually do something. You know, the bureaucratic inertia inside of there. And like I said, I don't agree with Tony Ortega that they're intimidated at all. I think there's just inertia. I think if you had 200,000 13909s flood in, they would get off their asses and do something. That's what we pay the government to do, is to shut down scofflaw, criminal, deadbeat cults. And that's what the IRS should be doing. So let's give them 200,000+ reasons to do it. And that's really what it takes. People react to public pressure. I know they do. Yeah, they would, Christina. If we had 200,000+ reasons for them to do it and they got flooded with it, because I know they were rattled by Leah Remini's TV show. I had a senior IRS official tell me that. And they took notice, and I said, why didn't you do anything? And it was election. They gave every excuse. They didn't have enough staff. You know, it was all BS. But Leah Remini and Mike Rinder moved the needle inside the IRS with Scientology in the aftermath. And that's all I can tell you about that. Now we have a chance to go even bigger because of SPTV, because of all the other people that are involved in the community. So I hope the information has proved to be useful. Please send me notes if you need help. I look forward to if I can free up my schedule, I'm going to definitely be at one of the protests. I'm pretty booked, but I'm going to try to be there April 17th for the official. So thank you so much for organizing the protest. I think it's a fantastic idea. We can breathe new life into this fight against this horrific cult that destroys children, adults, anyone who gets in its way. It'll take it all down to the bone marrow. Thank you so much for watching. And again, like I said, reach out to me. I'm here to help. There's plenty of other people who are experts. I'm doing what I can, and I appreciate you sharing the content and tuning in today on your Saturday. Thanks for watching. Jeffrey Augustine for the Scientology Money Project on SPTV. We'll see you next time.